And I have said here before, Honorable Speaker, I think when we were anticipating debate some time back on the sale of Safaricom shares, that if you look at the Safaricom before privatization, what it was, and the behemoth of an institution that Safaricom is today, courtesy of the privatization or the sale of shares by the government of Kenya to Vodacom, and also during the IPO of Safaricom to private sector players, the efficiency that came into that company and many others, and you see the same efficiency will come into KPC and many other institutions that have been privatized, that private sector efficiency coming into the public sector is only beneficial, and it never diminishes the gains or the benefits to the public. It only multiplies the benefits. That is why today Safaricom, KPLC, Kenyan are more efficient, they're employing more people, they are generating more wealth, not just to their shareholders, but also to this country. Safaricom pays taxes in hundreds of billions of shillings every year. Safaricom, when the telecom industry was a monopoly of telecom, the old KPTC, Kenya Post and Telecommunications, where Honorable Chebkonga used to work. You know, that KPTC, former KPTC, is a pale shadow of what Safaricom today is. Not to mention that there are other players that have also come into the market in that space of telcos. Airtel and all the others, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, the intent of this National Infrastructure Fund is to leverage not just on private sector expertise and capital, but also to multiply the benefits to the public of what we hold as public assets. And those in this house, like Honorable Amboka, who has just walked in, who superintend or who oversight our public investments in state corporations, will tell you there is a lot of wastage of public resources in many of the state corporations that are in this country, Honorable Speaker. And one of the ways to ensure that we stem this wastage is to inject private sector capital and private sector expertise and management into this space, Honorable Speaker. And that is part of what the intent of this fund. This fund will be managed by a board of directors or a board of management that will be, or one, the language in the bill is that the board shall be competitively recruited, Honorable Speaker. And if you go, those who have bothered to read the bill, Honorable Speaker, and I say those who have bothered to read the bill because many just speak out there without even reading the bill and saying, the board will have political appointees. This bill, Honorable Speaker, specifies the mode of appointment of the CEO. The board shall be recruited competitively from the private sector, Honorable Speaker, or independent board members, including the chair. In the past, Honorable Speaker, you know, chairs of boards and directors of boards have been nominated not in a very competitive manner, and we have seen a lot of political patronage in the appointment of chairs of boards. This, both the chair, the CEO, and all the independent directors or board members shall be recruited competitively, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that we have a board, a fund that is being managed in a very prudent manner and in a way that it gives priority to national or public interest, Honorable Speaker, other than political interests. Honorable Speaker, we are not the first nation to do this. And I think it's important to mention case examples, successful case examples of other funds like this that have done well. And this is a proven model that has worked in Australia. Australia's future fund is modeled around what we are doing today as a country. Therefore, when we say that we are moving from being a third world country to a first world country, it is not just in terms of the strategic interventions that have been made, but also in the legislation that we seek to make. And I must thank members because you are all here. We all participated in the enactment of the Government-Owned Enterprises Act, and I thank you for being here also to participate in the enacting of this National Infrastructure Fund. And I remember last year, if you remember, in his State of the Nation address, the President did challenge us that it is this generation, it is this 13th Parliament that will be remembered in the transformation of our republic when this nation eventually transforms from being a third world country, Honorable Speaker. I have mentioned the Australia's Future Fund, Honorable Speaker. If you go to Singapore, and I know the road to Singapore or the transformation of a country from a third world to a first world nation has been christened as a journey to Singapore. The road to Singapore, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from my younger old boy, the Honorable Clive Gisairo, who attended the Alliance High School years after I left, and now he has the audacity to shout from his seat. He should know I was in charge of discipline, and Honorable Speaker, now you're in charge of discipline, so please discipline me to read the bill and contribute to the bill. And I was giving examples, Honorable Speaker, of places where such similar funds have worked. I've mentioned the Australia's Future Fund, Singapore itself. The Temasek in Singapore is such a fund that has also worked for their country in the transformation of their country. UAE's, or the United Arab Emirates Mubadala, demonstrates that commercially run public investment funds can grow national wealth and deliver transformative infrastructure. That is the other intent of this bill, Honorable Speaker, that we will have a public investment fund that will not only grow our national wealth, but will deliver on that transformative infrastructure in the development of dams for irrigation, for provision of water, in the provision, generation, distribution, and provision of energy to be able to drive the industrial transformation that we intend to have, Honorable Speaker, which we have spoken for over the years. Honorable Speaker, I have had cases or a story being told of the investment. Almost, I don't know, a few $1 billion investment that was to come to Naivasha. And I wish the member of Naivasha was here. Here there is a neighbor from Naivasha in Njoro, who is behind me, the member for Njoro. The county of Nakuru was to benefit from a project worth billions of dollars in the provision of a data center, or the construction and investment of a data center. But the only reason why that project has not taken off, Honorable Speaker, or could not take off, is because we didn't have the energy. And it was built with a huge investment in the geothermal wells in Olkaria, and those in Menengai. Probably we had enough energy to run that data center. But it became clear to the investors and to us as a country that we did not even have a third of the energy that was required. That data center had the potential to employ hundreds of thousands of Kenyans directly and many others indirectly, leave alone the immense FDI, or foreign direct investment, that would have come into this economy. But we lost that because we didn't have enough energy. It is that investment in generation of energy, distribution of energy, that we must put in. It is that investment in that extension of SGR, our ports, both seaports and airports, Honorable Speaker. Look at the opportunity, Honorable Speaker, because every crisis comes with an opportunity, Honorable Speaker. The most efficient of world airlines are in the Gulf region. Qatar Airlines, Etihad's, Emirates of this world. Today, they are all grounded for the last 3 or so days. People are stuck in Dubai, others in Europe and elsewhere. They have planes that Kenya Airways doesn't have, but they can't move. What if we had an efficient Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, state-of-the-world, Moi International Airport in Mombasa, world-class airport at Moi Airport in Eldoret, Kisumu International Airport, or even the one in Lokichogi, Honorable Speaker? Those are the opportunities that we miss today because we slackened or we delayed in making deliberate, huge infrastructural investments, be it in the development of our roads infrastructure or our sea and airports. But we cannot afford, Honorable Speaker, to wait anymore. We cannot afford, Honorable Speaker, to leave to what many want to tell us, that, oh, I've heard some tell us here that, oh, Mwai Kibaki built one highway called Thika Road, that was built at a cost of 28 billion shillings. And forget to tell us that Mwai Kibaki had the pre-2010 constitution. He never had any obligation to send 400 billion shillings every year to counties. And maybe for those who join this house later, than me and my friend Nelson here, or yourself, Honorable Speaker, may not know that this is the 13th, in the 11th Parliament, the then chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, fine gentleman, man of God, the Reverend Mutava Musimi, led the Budget and Appropriations Committee then, which was comprised of about 51 members then, around the country, auditing the implementation of the 2010 Constitution. And I would invite those who speak for political expediency many a times to speak to the gallery, to take their time, because that report is here in the table office, to go and read that report. Then you will see the dichotomy that is there before the 2010 Constitution and the challenges of administrations that came post the 2010 Constitution, or the administrations in this country that will have to implement the 2010 Constitution. Then you will understand, so that when you are speaking out there to seek cheap publicity, political publicity, Honorable Speaker, that sense may come back to you to speak as a leader, not as a politician. Speak to what is right. Speak to what is good for the country. Because these four imperatives that were spoken to us here in the State of the Nation address last year are not national imperatives for one leader or for this parliament. They are national imperatives for this generation of leaders and the next generation of Kenyans and generations to come. And that is why someone once said that politicians look at the next general election. That is why you'll hear people say things that they think will excite the masses for the next election. That is why you'll hear them talk about terms with no agenda, with no plan, with no thinking as to what they have for the country, Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mbui and Undo.
It is, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Undo is very innocent. You know, Honorable Undo listens to contributions because he makes sensible contributions in the House. It is those who are shouting because they know what they usually shout out there who are shouting. I do not need to name them. They know themselves. It is like those who are celebrating the death of a colleague to make political capital in a rally in Nyahururu. Shame on them, Honorable Speaker. And shame on that person who was also shouting here, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill or this fund, how will it be financed? And I'm saying this for the benefit of the member for Kajiado North, that this fund will be financed with proceeds from privatization and disposal of government assets. So the proceeds of the IPO of KPC will not go to pay salaries for members of parliament or pay your mileage on a bongoyo. This money will come into this fund. Neither will the proceeds, should this House approve the partial divestiture of Safaricom by the government of Kenya, the money that will be raised will also come into this fund. Two, there will be parliamentary appropriations, and it is you as members of parliament who appropriate money into this fund as a source of fund. And of course, there are also, if you read in the bill, part 4 of the bill, part 6 of the bill, you also see that there also be other monies from any other source provided for or donated or lent to the fund, or even such fees, monies, or assets as may accrue to or be vested in the fund in the course of the exercise of its powers or the performance of its functions under the Act, should it become an Act, or under any other written law. Honorable Speaker, the establishment of this fund will significantly enhance the country's capacity to deliver, as I said, on transformative infrastructure projects in roads, railways, energy, water infrastructure, and other strategic national assets across the country. And Honorable Speaker, if you go to for those who have cared to go through the bill, if you read part 4 of the bill, the board of the bill is mandated to develop an investment policy, and it is this investment policy which must be approved by the cabinet secretary, and the cabinet secretary means the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary. It is this investment policy that will prioritize sectors that are proposed for development to ensure that there is equity across the nation, Honorable Speaker. 2, they will specify the proposed projects and see any existing incomplete projects from the previous investment policy to ensure that if they are proposed new projects, you must first complete any that were in the previous investment policy before you invest in new programs or projects, Honorable Speaker. 4 is also to give the expected rate of return on investment on specific projects. And this is to ensure also that money is prudently and transparently invested and in a way, prudently invested in a way that there is a good return. And therefore there must be a proper evaluation of the investments that are to be invested in to make sure that you do not deplete this fund. It will also specify the asset allocation and portfolio distribution and the exposure limits per sector and per project, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the board will also adopt an investment plan that will be based on the national strategic objectives, Honorable Speaker. And this investment plan, for instance, is the first board will be informed by what has already been debated in this House, those 4 strategic interventions that the President spoke to in the State of the Nation address, in ensuring that we invest in our human capital in education. Because, Honorable Speaker, the cost of education, not just in this country, globally, is very expensive. But it has been said that if you want to know how expensive education is, try ignorance or try not educate your country, then you know then how expensive it could be if you do not educate. And therefore, we must invest in the education of our children. We must invest in water resources management, either through the construction of those 50 mega dams and the 200 medium-sized dams, generation of electricity, and also the growth of our industries, Honorable Speaker, through that generated power to create jobs for the youth that then we educate. And therefore, this bill is creating the provision under Part 3 that the board will have that responsibility of adopting an investment plan that will be based on those national strategic objectives. And that plan, Honorable Speaker, will form the basis of the annual performance contracts which the board must sign between them and the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury. Because we want to hold people to account. And that is why the bill has those particular imperatives that you must have a performance contract signed between the board so that we measure and evaluate how they are doing. If you promised us a certain rate of return, if you promised us delivery of certain infrastructure projects, if you are not able to do it, Honorable Speaker, when you are being evaluated, and for those who have cared to go through the performance evaluation in clause 20 of this bill, you will see that the bill provides for a very good mechanism of evaluating their performance, having a performance-based contract for the board and the management of this fund, Honorable Speaker, and also ensuring, as I said earlier, that there is competitive recruitment of both the board and the secretariat that will manage this fund, Honorable Speaker, to ensure that we have the best. And that is why you see even in the board, if you are Kenyatta Ichung'wa or Robert Mbui, and you have served in a political office or have been affiliated with a political party in the last 5 years, including those who serve as party officials, you cannot and you shall not be nominated for appointment to this board, because we must protect. Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from this member for Kajiado North, Honorable Ngogoyo. And you know Honorable Ngogoyo was an MCA in Kajiado, and I had visited his ward when he was an MCA there.
Order.
It was ordinary for...
When I look at the screen here, my presumption was that you really want to contribute on this matter and order and say, but I only see you talking across the... You should communicate through the chair. And in any case, for God's sake, if you have some good ideas about this private infrastructural fund, then if you don't have a card, come and tell me that you don't have a card. And I'll pick you so that you can also make your contributions.
Honorable Speaker.
This is a house of debate. And the debate is also structured, is done in a disciplined way. My Honorable Mbui, I'm sure you know that. This is your third term in the House. Proceed, Leader Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I think Honorable Robert Mbui is the one to blame because he turned next to Honorable Ngogoyo. And Ngogoyo, being a first-time member, may think in the House you just sit and shout one term or two term. Honorable Mbui is the one who should be helping Ngogoyo to tell him to read the bill and contribute to what is in the bill. And what is in the bill, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that this fund is not misused. The bill has also put mechanisms in place which will include the fund being audited by the Auditor General, and that Auditor General will report to you as members of Parliament. You know, you are the ones who oversight the Auditor General, and all her reports, all the reports of the Office of the Auditor General, end up in this House. Therefore, you will have your place in making sure that whatever is audited comes to this House. That is why you see diligent people and chairs of committees like Honorable Amboka is very keen to listen because he knows these reports will come to him in his Public Investments Committee or PAC, for that matter. Two, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that there is no overdrawing of this fund. You cannot overdraw this fund, Honorable Speaker, and that is an imperative that we are legislating in law here. Also to ensure that we cap the expenditure in the fund, that it shall never and it cannot exceed its annual income. Therefore, when the fund is established, they have a secretariat. If anybody imagines that is the opportunity to go and start buying buildings in town or buying cars for the chairman and directors and CEOs and whoever else, we shall regulate how much you can expend, and it must be within what you are generating. Two is a ring-fence withdrawal, as I said, even in terms of investments. What kind of projects are you investing in? Are they properly evaluated? Do they have a return? Are they commercially viable? Those are the issues, Honorable Speaker. Five is also to ensure that there is reinvestment of any surplus, so that if we have any surplus from the fund, that money doesn't just hang around like used to happen in many parastatals. And I must thank the National Treasury. In the last 2 years, Honorable Speaker, they have been able to mop up a lot of surplus funds in many of our public investments. And therefore, this fund, we're also saying, just like all other public investment funds, if there is any surplus, it must be reinvested to keep growing the fund, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I could belabor too many points in the bill, and I want to imagine that many members have read this bill and are aware of the provisions of what is in the bill. I would just implore on all of us to support this bill because it is establishing a very structured and transparent process that also identifies, evaluates, and even an approval process and financing of infrastructure projects in the country. And if you go through clauses 21 to 25, that very detailed structure and framework has been established, and one that to ensure there's transparency, even in how you identify projects, how you evaluate those projects, how they are approved, all that is put in the bill, and how those projects will be financed. Honorable Speaker, I mentioned the issue of the investment policy, which will be done and will subsist for a period of 5 years. Therefore, just allow me, Honorable Speaker, to conclude by saying that this fund is within the powers that have been vested by our Constitution to this House. And Honorable Speaker, you know our Constitution in Article 206, sub-Article 1A, empowers Parliament to establish other public funds for a specific purpose through an act of Parliament. And that is why I began by giving the genesis of where this fund is coming from, right from the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. When we campaigned around the country, we went to every village, every county in this country, and we told the Kenyan people that we will have a national infrastructure fund which we shall utilize to grow our economy. And you know where the economy was at that time, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, what we are doing today, this bill is giving effect to this constitutional provision by creating that very well-structured and accountable framework for infrastructure financing in the country without overburdening either the Kenyan people through additional taxes or overburdening future generations through additional funding. Honorable Speaker, allow me to conclude by just giving a simple example, and I gave you the example of the opportunity that we would have had if Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Moi International Airport, Kisumu International Airport, the airport in Lokichogio, the airport in Eldoret and Mombasa were state-of-the-art airports with good runways to accommodate your Airbus 320s and 330s and all the huge Boeing jets that are stuck around the world. It has been estimated, probably, Honorable Speaker, a new airport would cost us, or rebuilding of the JKI would cost us about 200 billion shillings. It would be very easy, Honorable Speaker, today to raise the 200 billion shillings or the 100 billion shillings that was raised from the IPO from Kenya Pipeline, and the 200 and something billion shillings that will be raised from Safaricom partial divestiture should it be approved by this House. Take 200 billion shillings and we go and build an airport. Yet people in the northern parts of Kenya are starving. Animals are dying there every day, including parts of our coastal region, areas like Magarini and other areas in Kwale. And even other parts in upcountry, even in parts of central Kenya, there are people who are starving because of the drought that was there. Thank God there are rains. So the competing priorities that we have as a country, we must decide, do we pay school capitation for our children, or do we go and build an airport? And we could easily get the 200 billion shillings from the IPO and invest it in building an airport. We have that railway to nowhere that's tolled around Dukamoja after Suswa. It is not giving us a return on the investment that the Kenyan public put in the building of that railway. For it to be meaningful and give us a return on investment, it must be able to connect our port in Mombasa to the port in Kisumu and to the hinterland, landlocked countries in the Great Lakes region, Uganda, DRC, and the others. Therefore, with all these competing priorities, Honorable Speaker, do we finish building a dam in Galana Kulalu and provide food to the starving Kenyans, including hay to animals that are starving in parts of our country, or do we build the airport? It is possible to chew gum and scale the stairs at the same time, Honorable Speaker. That is what this fund is speaking to. This fund is inviting us to be able to chew gum and scale the stairs, to be able not to overburden the Kenyan public with additional taxes or additional borrowing, but also at the same time to invest in very capital-intensive infrastructure projects, that the building of a new airport, completion of that railway, SGR railway, completion of the dual carriage roads that we have mentioned, be it Mausami to Rironi, be it Marwa to Nanyuki, to Isiolo, to Meru, back to Makutano, be it the one in Gong, Karen, and back to Gong Road. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, what will this fund do? Because I've had many people ask that. Okay, so you are telling us you have a national infrastructure fund and you privatize companies, state-owned companies, put the money in the fund. Then you have told us you will not pay debt from that fund, you will not pay salaries, it will not be budgetary support fund. Instead of getting 200 billion shillings to go and invest in the building of a new JKI or a new airport here in Nairobi, any person that you invite to do a public-private partnership even in the private sector, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know you are a very successful business person, you know, that whatever investment you make, Honorable Speaker, people leverage on equity. And people will have equity, then they go out and borrow. I'll have my 1 billion shillings. I want to invest in a 5 billion shillings project. That constitutes 20% of the investment in that project. So long as it's commercially viable, I go to the market, I raise another 4 billion shillings, then the project pays for itself. That is all government intends to do with this fund. The 200 billion shillings you raise from Safaricom or from Kenya Pipeline, instead of taking that 200 billion shillings, paying salaries, buying relief food, paying for our school capitation, we continue doing that as we have been doing through our locally raised revenues and what we are borrowing domestically and externally. But since the construction of an airport today is a huge commercial opportunity, and I alluded to that, supposing we had those efficient airports, all those world airlines in the Gulf had the opportunity today to use Kenya or Nairobi as their operation hub. You can imagine one airline going to Europe probably needs 3 sets of crews. That crew would need to be accommodated in hotels in Nairobi for them to come and change shifts. Imagine the investment opportunity in hotels, in our hospitality industry. Our taxis, our Uber drivers, having this hub as a connecting hub now between those countries where there is war and the rest of the world, Honorable Speaker. Today, somebody who was going to the US through Emirates or Qatar cannot. But if Qatar could operate from Nairobi, is a business opportunity and a commercially viable opportunity, Honorable Speaker. That is what I'm saying. If we take, say, we need 200 billion shillings to invest in a new airport. If we invite Honorable Robert Mbui as a private investor to come and invest in the airport, all Mbui will need is 50 billion shillings. Then he will go out and raise from the capital markets and financial markets another 150 billion shillings. That is the opportunity we want to tap into, Honorable Speaker. That we can have our 200 billion shillings, instead of investing a lot of it in that airport, we will take our 50 billion shillings, invite a private investor who will bring in the efficiency of the private sector to bring their 20 or 30 billion shillings, buy equity into that project of a new airport. And that new project will leverage on the equity that you have and the capital that you have to raise probably 5-fold or 10-fold the money that you're holding and be able to efficiently run a new airport that will repay itself. Therefore, instead of investing 200 billion shillings into one project, that 200 billion shillings can go into 10 projects. And that is how the President, in his State of the Nation address last year, for those who care to remember, alluded to how you can invest 5 trillion shillings in the next few years by leveraging on what we raise from our public assets that we privatize, leverage on that, raise more capital, invest in those capital-heavy infrastructure projects that will further grow our economy and create job opportunities for millions of our young people, whom we are very happy to keep lying to as we lecture them out there, telling them, oh, you will get jobs. Oh, go to school. We are paying for you school fees. You finish your schooling and you get jobs. But there will be no jobs if you don't grow this economy. And you will not grow this economy by taxing Kenyans or over borrowing. You will not. It is true. And Robert Mbui was telling us 2 years ago during the finance bill that you cannot tax the people to death. That is what now we are inviting you. Don't tax Kenyans to death. Let us have innovative new financing ways, models that have worked elsewhere, that have worked in UAE, that have worked in Singapore, that have worked in Australia, that have worked in Germany and other countries around the world. because we aspire to be a first world country. That aspiration must be backed by solid legislation like this. Solid legislation that will ensure that we protect our public assets. Solid legislation that will ensure that the assets we privatize, that money does not go to waste. And generations to come will see a new SGR, will see a new airport, will see dams in Galana Kulalu, will see dams in Tana River, in Kilifi, will see a nation that feeds itself.
Yeah, give him an additional 2 minutes just to wrap it up.
Honorable Speaker was saying a nation that will be able to feed itself. That will not happen by accident, Honorable Speaker. It must be deliberate and conscious effort by leaders. And I say by leaders, Honorable Speaker, because politicians will tend to speak to what they think will be exciting to the gallery. I want to invite you, honorable ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of parliament, please desist from the temptation to be politicians. I know next year is an electoral year, but Kenyans will remember you for the legislation like this that you passed, that protected the assets, grew the economy, and secured the future of our children. And I say our children for those of us who have children, and those of us who have young children, for that matter. Because I know some of us have children who are as old as me. But those with young children...
Order, MD, Majority Leader.
Sorry?
If it were not for politics, you would not be addressing this house. But there's good politics and there's bad politics.
There's good, yes,
so
Honorable
make the
Speaker, thank
distinction.
you. There's good politics, but there's backward politics. Retrogressive politics. That only seeks to excite the masses without speaking truth to them. I hear people saying, oh, I want to speak truth to power. Also speak truth to the people. Because the power belongs to the people. Power comes from the people. If you do not speak truth to them, they will punish you, and punish you next year. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the very intelligent chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee, a leader, not just a politician, a leader par excellence, a first-class honor student, second-term member of parliament serving the people of Molo, and doing exemplary well in Molo. And I say that because I have investments in Molo and I know what is happening in Molo, Honorable Speaker. A man who has dedicated his life to the transformation of this country. The member for Molo, my namesake, the Honorable Kuria Kimani. And the chair of Finance Committee will second this motion. And he's a great man. Wait and...
Thank you very much, my leader of majority. And you forgot to mention, there are only less than 150 FCPAs in this country, and I'm one of them in this house. Honorable Speaker, I stand to second this particular bill, the National Infrastructure Bill number 1 of 2026. Honorable Speaker, to pick from where the leader of majority party left, we have been living a lie as a country, telling ourselves that we can develop our country from the revenues that we collect and the loans that we seek, whether domestically or in foreign loans. Honorable Speaker, in this financial year, we anticipate to collect 3.32 trillion shillings as ordinary revenue. Out of this, 1.098 trillion will go to repayment of, not repayment, will go to payment of interest on loans, not the principal, interest on loans, 1.098 trillion. These are loans that were taken for the Eurobonds, that did the infrastructure, some of the infrastructure that we see, and for loans that some were stolen, the proverbial 2 billion shillings that was being stolen every day. 205.2 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker, goes to payment of pensions. Honorable Speaker, another space that has been managed by previous administrations has been the issue of pensions. For a very long time, even now, members of this House have messages from their teachers who are retired, from police officers who are retired, from army officers who are retired, trying to tell them, please help me get my pension. So why is it not possible that our teachers, our civil servants are retiring and the money that they saved as their pension is not available? It's because, Honorable Speaker, we have kept budgeting for monies for our pension in our annual budgets. And for a very long time, until this administration enacted or started the public pension superannuation scheme that now sets aside both the contributions of the employee and the contribution of employer to a kitty, to a fund, so that when these people go on retirement, that money is available to pay them. Both the lumps of money and the monthly pension, Honorable Speaker, is available. Our contingent, the money that we send to our counties, Honorable Speaker, in terms of equitable share, is around 405 billion shillings a year, Honorable Chairperson. Our recurrent expenditures is around 960 billion shillings. These are the salaries we pay for our teachers, the police officers, and all the other civil servants, Honorable Speaker. When you take out all these statutory deductions, which fall the first charge in our other revenue, the only money left for development is 29.8 billion shillings. For information, Honorable Speaker, 29 billion shillings can only build between 30 to 90 kilometers of roads. So if we continue staying and living the way we are doing, if you continue running the economy the way we are running, we would only be able to build a partially 30 to 90 kilometers per year, Honorable Speaker. And that's why the reckoning call is, how do we balance the need for development expenditures, the need to honor our constitutional mandates, whether it is the requisition fund or our pension obligations or our salaries for recurrent expenditure, Honorable Speaker, or the capitation for schools, without doing what Kenyans told us to do, not to do. They do not want additional taxation. They do not additional borrowing. So how then do we grow our country? Do we do our infrastructure when balancing this particular interest, Honorable Speaker? That's why, Honorable Speaker, the National Infrastructure Fund bill is a game changer in this particular matter, Honorable Speaker. The fund is being proposed to achieve several purposes. One is to scale up and accelerate development of a catalytic national infrastructure, like our national highways, our railway networks, our air and seaports, our electricity generation, our transmission and distribution, water reservoirs, irrigation, and even agribusiness infrastructure. Honorable Speaker, I've had a chance to canvass this country when processing the partial diversity of Safaricom shares, and during this infrastructure fund bill, we did 30 counties, Honorable Speaker. And we traveled from West Pokot to Wajir to Marsabit. And we also went to Nyeri and Murang'a and Nakuru and Baringo and everywhere else, Honorable Speaker. And it's like we live in different countries. For some countries, for some counties, for some constituencies, we have tarmac roads going to every homestead. We have homesteads that have had tapped water since independence. Not since Kenya Kwanza administration, not since Kibaki's administration, but they have had tapped water, Honorable Speaker. But once you go to other parts of the country, it's extremely dry. Some constituencies don't have even a smallest inch of tarmac. Some counties, Honorable Chairperson, are not even connected to the national grid of electricity. Honorable Speaker, the reality is now, how do we ensure that the counties and the constituencies that have tarmac and now need social infrastructure get the social infrastructure they need, but at the same time, those constituencies, those counties that need the hard infrastructure, like roads, like dams, like electricity, like electrician, get that without, Honorable Speaker, increasing taxation for taxpayers or increasing debt, Honorable Chairperson. And that's why this bill is meant now to reduce the reliance on public debt for the financing of commercially viable infrastructure investments, to strengthen the national capacity for irrigation, structuring and execution of large and complex infrastructure projects, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Speaker, the bill represents a pivotal moment in our nation's quest for sustainable, debt-light infrastructure development. And as chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, I'm very proud that I'm midwifing this bill that will have the most consequential impact of our country. Honorable Speaker, let me remind you that a few years ago we had one of the most successful then debt that was acquired by this country, Honorable Speaker, the Eurobond. The Eurobond was approximately 200 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker. And this is a payment that if
Once you are told there is no money, you have to wait. Sometimes you're told to wait for the budget, but even from the budget, the money will not be available. So today, we debate a very important bill which seeks to establish money for development that we need in the rural constituencies like yesterday. This is where we will draw our roads from. This is where we will draw our water from. This is where we will get our electricity from. And there cannot be any meaningful development in any area of this country if those three factors are actually missing. Therefore, this bill is timely. It's timely also because what we seek to do, and especially the sources of the money, are what we would call questionable investments by our government. Remember, the government doesn't own any farms. In fact, it's always also a misnomer for the government to invest in certain companies, which we call parastatals, unless those are high-yielding companies where the government reaps real profit. Today, as we speak, we had the Kenya pipeline, where we have disposed of some of the shares. If you were asked how the money derived, the profit derived from KPC, what it is, where it goes, nobody would have answered. Because this is just ordinary income like any other, which is subsumed into daily expenses of the country. Now with this act, we know very well that if we do such a divestiture, if we sell in layman's language through IPOs, we know where the money would go, and we would be asking for it from that particular pass. The same with the KBC, absolutely. Today, KBC, what is KBC? What does it exactly do? But it's a very important asset for this country. When it comes to divestiture, when it comes to generating income, which will go towards developing the country in terms of infrastructure, roads, water, and electricity. You've actually had the chairman of finance stating that we need water to move this country forward. We need dams. But where do we get the money from? Borrowing or taxation? Sincerely, we must support the lead of majority to say we have taxed Kenyans enough. We do not want any more taxation. Let's look for innovative ways of getting money which we can use for our development. We've also borrowed enough. The country is reeling from debts. Therefore, we must again think outside the box. And I allowed His Excellency the President, because severally he has said he will bite the bullet. He will make some of the most unpopular decisions which will become extremely popular in the long term. One such decision is to actually come up with this bill through the cabinet and the lead of majority, whereby we will now cushion money for development into a fund known as the National Infrastructure Fund. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support this bill wholeheartedly, and I urge the members to equally support it. Thank you very much.
MP Foyata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From onset, I raised to support the bill. I have specific reasons why I support this particular bill. Mr. Speaker, if you look at countries like South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Brazil, Indonesia, and many other progressive nations, Mr. Speaker, they have a fund on infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at our country today, if you go to the rural areas, they ask you for energy. They ask you for roads. They ask you for, electricity, water, and all these very essential item, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at our country today, we are borrowing a lot. We are borrowing from Eurobond, borrowing from Chinese and many other nations, Mr. Speaker. So with this particular bill, we are going to reduce over-reliance on borrowing. We'll be able to reduce the pressure on debt, Mr. Speaker. And through that, our people will feel the relief on repaying debts. And that's why this is a very essential bill, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, through this particular bill, we are going to attract international investors who are going to support in driving the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, through the bill, we'll be able to generate jobs. And we can imagine today, many of the young people are struggling to get jobs, Mr. Speaker. And the jobs will be generated through energy, roads, and all other sectors like agriculture, Mr. Speaker, because with water is a recipe for agricultural growth, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, through this particular bill, we'll be able to align ourselves with the Vision 2030, Mr. Speaker. Those who have read Vision 2030, we talk of key sectors, energy, roads, rails, and that is what is going to boost the GDP of this country, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, any patriot who means well for Kenya, Mr. Speaker, should support this particular bill. And to summarize my own summary, I want to say that through the bill, we are going to reduce the debt pressure that many Kenyans, particularly taxpayers, are experiencing. And this is going to give us a lot of freedom when it comes to ensuring there is health, when it comes to the pay slip, which is currently squeezed because of the urge to pay the debts that we have, Mr. Speaker. Importantly, we'll be able to mobilize private capital. Public-private partnership will be a reality through this particular bill. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I say any patriot should support, because through this particular bill will ensure timely project completion. Most of our projects are stalled because of lack of funds. We are talking of mega dams that we have been yearning to have, like in Yatta Dam, has never started, simply because we don't have funds for that, Mr. Speaker. Importantly, we have many other stadiums, Kano stadiums, and many other mega projects, even Thoke Dam, Mr. Speaker, which have stalled. So through this particular infrastructure fund, we are going to jumpstart these essential projects that have stalled and be able to guarantee their completion, Mr. Speaker. Importantly, there will be long-term national development, which will be more structured than it is today. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the bill, and I urge members who mean well for Kenya and future generations to support the bill. Thank you.
Madam Phyllis Barto, followed by Nyoro. Barto, are you in the chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this infrastructure bill. And it reminds me of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, whereby it has provided for disposal of assets. But sometimes it becomes problematic. But when I read through this infrastructure bill, I am seeing there is going to be a very good connection between the disposal of public assets and and depositing these funds in a fund which is going to translate it to be meaningful. And Mr. Speaker, I support this because, one, it is going to put the money into a very useful means of developing the country. We have been doing budgets year in, year out, Mr. Speaker, but we have not been able to actualize development in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, for how long are we going to wait? For how long are we going to compare ourselves with other countries like Singapore, like the first one, like America, like China? if we don't make a decision and see how we can do it ourselves without waking up every day to go and borrow in those other countries. I think, Mr. Speaker, Kenya has come of age, and it's a high time it can stand on its feet and prioritize on its development using the resources which are locally available in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this infrastructure fund is going to be run by an established board. And in this board, it has structures in how to utilize these resources. One thing I really like about it is the identification of projects in the entire country. Mr. Speaker, we have had stalled projects in the entire Kenya. Every year, we have new projects and others are left out. This infrastructure bill clearly stipulates on how this is going to be done. That infrastructure is going to be identified. There is going to be a policy, and whenever the projects are not complete, they are carried forward to the next financial year. So nothing is going to be left undeveloped. Currently, like in my constituency, there are so many projects which are incomplete. They are hanging at different stages. I always transfer offices looking for or sourcing. I always call it scavenging in offices looking for resources to complete these projects. I think it is going to cure a very big problem. I think it is going to make sure that development is done in a unified manner. It is going to bring unity in Kenya. And how I hope that in this infrastructure bill, we are going to realize in development of roads, connecting us from Nairobi to Mombasa. We are going to have very good roads connecting us from Nairobi to other borders of Kenya. Our airports, Mr. Speaker, are in dilapidated state. It is very embarrassing that we always take off from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and when we land in airports like Amsterdam, we get perplexed at how they are advanced. You go to Kisumu Airport, you go to Eldoret Airport, they just look like small restaurants. I hope in this infrastructure fund, it is going to take us to higher levels, to have airports which are admirable, to have airports which we are going to also use to generate more income to develop Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, I only support this bill, and I support the infrastructure fund, and I'm looking forward to a Kenya where we will have a very beautiful country, a well-developed country with equity, with enough resources, and a country to be proud of, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I support the bill.
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this chance to contribute. Honorable Speaker, anytime there is a new bill, there must be a problem, and there must be a solution you are trying to prescribe. I have read the entire bill, Honorable Speaker, word to word. And I've sat here listening to both the mover and the second, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, listening and reading the bill, one of the issues it is highlighting is about infrastructure. And you're talking here about roads, airports, and of course water and electrification or energy. But Honorable Speaker, it is important for us to know that reading the bill, all the things that you are purporting to want to do are already being done by Kenya. And all the other things in terms of revenue-raising measures that are being put forward, we also do, except one which I highlight, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, since independence, Kenya is a respected economy. When it comes to roads, Kenya is the number 3 best paved economy in Africa in terms of paved roads. Only second from South Africa and Nigeria, Honorable Speaker. When it comes to energy and electrification, Kenya is actually number 2 in the entire Eastern Central Africa and actually number 1 in Eastern Africa. And therefore, when it comes to infrastructure, Kenya has always done what it needs to do without the need of introducing a new bill or a new entity with very weak oversight. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, what is it that we are trying to cure or prescribe? Honorable Speaker, our economy is solid out of budget. I was sitting here listening to the contributors, and especially the mover in the seconder. And we are here telling Kenyans about how Kenya has not been able to do many things because there was no this kind of bill. But Honorable Speaker, all the development, infrastructural development of our country has always been done and done through the budget. And therefore, when we talk about we need this to build roads, I think we are misleading Kenyans. Kenya has always done this. Honorable Speaker, the second point. Everything in this bill is always and has always been done by Kenya, except one thing. That now, Kenya wants to move away from recording our debt in one book of debt. We are now opening another debt book, which we are calling Infrastructure Fund, Honorable Speaker. In the long run, Honorable Speaker, what we are trying to do is not out of the examples that were given. We are trying to do much more like what Ghana did and Senegal did. In fact, Honorable Speaker, the right and correct title of this bill is actually National Illegal Borrowing Fund. Because what we are seeking to do is these fancy words that are being thrown here. One word that I've heard is called crowding in. The second one is called leverage. Honorable Speaker, these are synonyms of borrowing. That we now want to borrow more than we are borrowing. We continue borrowing more in the actual book, but we open a different book, Honorable Speaker, on the side. Honorable Speaker, this is incompetence that we are trying to cover up here, Honorable Speaker. For the work that has not been done for the last 4 years, we want now to create a cover for that incompetence. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is now borrowing 1.25 trillion Kenya shillings a year. We are therefore borrowing 4 billion Kenya shillings every day. The first question should be, because according to PFM Act, we should always borrow for infrastructural development. Where is the 4 billion shillings going to, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, because I see my time is almost up, let me go to some of the examples that were given. And I was seated here waiting to hear something different from what I have read. What I have heard, Honorable Speaker, is actually, I don't think the mover, especially, understands this bill. Because the example number one I had is Future Fund from Australia. The second one is Mubadala from UAE, Honorable Speaker. And the third one is Temasek. Those three companies are investment companies, Honorable Speaker. They are not infrastructure funds. And that is why when you go to a company like Mubadala is the number one investor, for example. It has invested in companies like Tencent, like Alibaba, and the rest. Honorable Speaker, this is very far. It is the other polar of Mubadala, Temasek, and Future Fund.
You have 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Honorable Speaker, what I'm just trying to say is that the examples we are floating around here is totally misleading. Whereas Mubadala and Future Fund and Temasek of Singapore, their work is to invest and actually get returns for the country. This other fund, what is purporting to do, is to raise funds through this parliament, to raise funds through privatization, but not to invest, Honorable Speaker. It is to leverage, crowding, which are actually synonyms of borrowing, Honorable Speaker. Now we want to give somebody a pass and a throughway to borrow 5 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, and determine how it is spent. Our 4 trillion budget is oversighted by this budget, by this parliament. 400 billion Kenya shillings in equitable share is oversighted by the National Assembly, by Senate, by 47 county assemblies, and here we are debating on how to hand over 5 trillion Kenya shillings into an individual, Honorable Speaker. You cannot be patriotic and support this kind of reckless experimentation, Honorable Speaker.
although I'm not an ex-official member of this house, this is one moment I would have loved to be on the other side. To rebut a lot of the things you said. I know infrastructure has been going on in this country, but in your region, not in my region, not in the rest of the country. It's been because, and in any case, Mubadala is a wholly government-owned. It's a wholly government of Emirates, or anyway. I don't want to start the debate from this side. I'm still chairing the house here. Madam Sabina Chege, and then Honorable Deputy Minority Leader. Sabina Chege. How I wish I was not on the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill. Mr. Speaker, one thing that I thank God is that I was able to be in Azimio team. And being in Azimio team, I was able to travel across the nation. And I just want to echo what you have said. As my colleague said, there's development in Kenya. Not all parts of Kenya are developed. And even if I go to my own county, Murang'a, the road networks that the honorable member from Kiaru is enjoying are not similar with the honorable member from Kandara. So we still need roads. We still need electricity network, Mr. Speaker. For someone to purport to say like what we have in Kenya is self-sustainable. Mr. Speaker, we all know, even with Mau Mau roads that cut across our Murang'a, Nyeri, and Kiambu County, going all the way to Laikipia, Mr. Speaker, why the road stopped is because there was not enough money. And Mr. Speaker, for us to be able to complete these roads where our people are making a lot of noise, Mr. Speaker, we must have a way of financing. So, Mr. Speaker, we can't keep on borrowing from other countries where we have homemade solution. And Mr. Speaker, this infrastructure bill is going to help us to do the national highways, and especially when we are talking about the Mau Summit. I know I might be privileged that when I'm going home, I have the Thika Superhighway, where we are also waiting to have the expressway from Thika to Nairobi. But it's a pity that our colleagues, when they are going all the way through Nakuru, all the way, Mr. Speaker, they can spend a whole night and another day. So as we talk about infrastructure, as we talk about development in this nation, we must make sure that this development reaches everyone. With this bill, Mr. Speaker, there is provision of a team or directors who are going to be in charge of this, this fund. And so you can't just say that you're handling a blank check to one individual, because there's a team. There's also an opportunity for Parliament also to oversight and see how the money is being utilized, Mr. Speaker. And so as I support this bill, I'll say this, Mr. Speaker. It is the high time that we support the bill. It is the high time that we stop borrowing from outside or relying on other countries, but making sure that we have a local solution, a domestic solution, Mr. Speaker. And so while we are able to work with the private sector, where we are able to look for solutions to help our people, I hope we will not take this fund and start politicizing it. We must look at the cup as half full, not half empty, Mr. Speaker. And also trust on our own institution, Mr. Speaker. We can't just say that the other countries did this, but we have solutions. Mr. Speaker, it is in record that some of these countries, when we even talk about Singapore, as at some point they were together with Kenya. But what happens to our own as Kenyans? Any project, any proposal, we normally have the naysayers. We normally have people who their work is just to oppose. But Mr. Speaker, not looking at the bigger picture to see how we can be able to develop this country and to have a positive mind and positive energy. So as we debate, I am hoping that we don't politicize this bill. I am hoping, Mr. Speaker, that we look at a way that we are having homemade solution. And we have a chance to make sure that where we go, our people are asking for water, they're asking for electricity, they want conducive education environment. You have seen classes and students, Mr. Speaker, even today, who are still under the trees. We are working at our airport, Mr. Speaker. How are we able to finance our airport? And we know Kenya Airways used to be the leading airline in Africa, And what is a big challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that we only have now only one landing place, and we need to expand our airport, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about food security, today I had the privilege, Mr. Speaker, to even go and visit one of our genetics offices, animal genetics in Kabete, Mr. Speaker. We only need to give them a few more coins so that they can be able to go train the farmers on how to be able to have even better cows and better species and better genes, Mr. Speaker. How are we going to finance this? We have our own homegrown solution. Mr. Speaker, I will urge the people of this House to look at it positively. We as this House has a chance to come up with a solution that within the next 5 years we can sit back and say we contributed to something positive, and now Kenya can be able to be self-sustainable with oversight in this House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and once again I support.
Honorable Mbui, MP for Kadiani.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, listening to the chairman of Finance, the Honorable Kimani Kuria, he actually said that we've been living a lie. And I want to agree with him because Kenya has become actually an experimental guinea pig by this regime. They attempted to overtax Kenyans, it didn't work. They proceeded to borrow, they've reached the limit. Now they've changed the term of borrowing, it's now called securitization and all sorts of other terms. It is also not working. So we've settled on selling everything that Kenya owns. Mr. Speaker, if you have a cow, and using that cow, you can be able to pay fees for your children. It makes absolute...
Order, Honorable Mbui. Honorable Kimani is in a point of order. What's out of order, Honorable Kimani?
Honorable Speaker, is it in order for the honorable member to misinform this House deliberately that we are selling, deceive this House, that we are selling everything we own? Whereas if he's referring to the session paper number 2 of 2025, the partial divestiture, we are only diversifying only 15% of the shares. The rest remains owned by the government of Kenya. So when you misinform this House deliberately to just skew emotion, Honorable Speaker, I think it's very fair, and the honorable member should withdraw that particular statement that we are deceiving this House, that we are selling everything, because that is very far from the truth, Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I said when you're milking a cow, and use that money to be able to educate your children, it makes absolutely no sense to sell that cow. Because then, if you sell the cow and build a house, how do you pay fees after that? Mr. Speaker, I also listened very keenly to the majority leader when he spoke about this. And he was very, very categorical about the work that it will do, roads, mega dams, electricity distribution, very colorful language. But Mr. Speaker, absolutely nothing new was said by the majority leader. You know, it makes it sound like forming this fund is going to give us money, create money from thin air. That doesn't work. Money must come from somewhere. So this fund is definitely not going to have money from somewhere. Now, he also quoted the president and said, you know what, we don't want to overburden our budget to build infrastructure. We cannot continue borrowing. But then when you read the bill, you find that actually the board that they're forming is actually going to be borrowing. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to just say I totally oppose this attempt at taking Kenya backwards, because I don't think there's anything positive about this. We've been building our roads. We have an international airport. It may not be excellent, but it was built when this fund wasn't there. We have highways. They were built when this fund wasn't there. We have actually dams, huge dams. They were built when this fund wasn't there. So you're pretending that suddenly with a fund we'll be having things that we didn't have before. There is nothing further from the truth. Now, the purpose of this fund is to scale up and accelerate development. But you know, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to just say that they say that it is going to mobilize private capital and non-traditional sources of funds, for example, pension funds. So that means NSSF is in trouble, because that is where they're going to be looking for money for. Mr. Speaker, it also means, obviously, Mr. Speaker,
the majority leader is on a point of order.
You know, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, you know my good friend Robert. My good friend Robert has invited me from my office when I listened in, Honorable Speaker, and mentioned my name in particular. So I have a right of reply, Honorable Speaker. Because he's saying that I said we are going to do infrastructure that has been done before without this fund. But if he listened to me, and he says, and I heard someone else also claim that this is another way of borrowing. It is not, Honorable Speaker. And when I listened, Honorable Speaker, and I thank God that you are on the chair, you did correct something. We were being told that, oh, what we are doing is what Ghana did. And you know, it's not even fair to discuss another country, but Ghana defaulted on their debt, on public debt, because they engaged in borrowing, the borrowing that we are moving away from. Robert, my good friend, is now saying that we have done roads before. Yes, we have done one superhighway, Thika, in 2008. We have done an expressway through a public-private partnership, what we are proposing in this bill. Honorable Speaker, somebody said that we are handing over 5 trillion shillings to an individual, and that the bill has no oversight mechanism. And that's why Honorable Speaker was saying on a point of order that we must restrict our debate to what is in the bill, what is provided for in the bill. Because if you read this bill, and the bill, I can...
Honorable Majority Leader, when you are on a point of order, you pick out what was out of order, which I think you have done.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, because they are saying...
Order, honorable members. Order, you are now debating. And in any case, as you put it order. You know, I miss those old days when I was a deputy speaker and I used to throw out of this place, ministers included. So if you want me to do that, I'll gladly do that again. Yeah, you put it very well. And you've already put in yours that this is not borrowing, even if it's borrowing, creating equity and then public-private partnership, which means these are going to be companies on their own. It's not the state or the government that will be borrowing, Honorable Mbui. But nonetheless, you proceed. I'm actually putting in some of these things because, unfortunately, today you don't have the normal speaker. You have somebody who is also a member of a constituency, who also wants development in this place. When you talk about development being there in every corner all these years, that was discriminated, institutionalized abuse of office by the frequent governments that were there, because they took this development only to certain areas. 80% of the country does not have development. Anyway, let's continue. I just have to butt in on this because I also have to represent the Dadaab constituency, which has never seen a tarmac road, never ever seen a mega dam or a tarmac road. Proceed, Honorable Mbui. I know you come from Kadiani in Machakos, and that place is very well developed. Go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I want to confirm that it says that we will reduce reliance on public debt. Yes. And Mr. Speaker, yet I want to just point out, if you look at part 2 of the bill, which talks about the establishment and functions of the board, of the fund, one of them, part 5(2)(c), is borrowing money. So, Mr. Speaker, when you say you're not borrowing, and it is there in the bill, we have read the bill, Mr. Speaker. You know, so, I mean, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to just continue and say this, that, Mr. Speaker, the real purpose behind this infrastructure fund is to make sure that you evade Parliament. Mr. Speaker, how do you do that? Money that is appropriated through this house is what we distribute so that we can be able to do development, as you have said, without being skewed in a certain way. But, Mr. Speaker, there is nowhere in this bill that shows any plan that will make sure that the money being distributed through this fund will be able to reach everybody fairly. So, Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no benefit for this fund. And I think it's just a way by which we want to borrow more money and have money that we can be able to use, especially going into the next election, because I'm certain that is the purpose for which this bill is being pushed. And I'm certain members here will push it for it to go to third reading tomorrow so that we can be able to pass this for the next election. But, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that Kenyans are watching us. Kenyans are watching us and they know exactly what we are doing, and Kenyans will stop us if we don't stop ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that there's a lot more problems with this bill. Now, they say that for you to qualify to serve in this as a member of the board, you have to have worked in a senior managerial position for 15 years. Mr. Speaker, that basically means that you lock out all people that are youthful in this country. For the age of, to finish the age of what we call the youth, you have to be above 35 years old. Mr. Speaker, when you finish university, you're already over 22 years old. You add 15 years, you're already over 35 years old. That means absolutely no youth will be able to serve in this. Mr. Speaker, how fair is that? That, in my opinion, is even unconstitutional. There must be a way by which people that are not beyond 35 years can be able to also participate. Not to forget, Mr. Speaker, that we are saying that you cannot be a member of, you cannot be an independent director if you have served as a member of parliament. That's also discriminatory, Mr. Speaker. How can you stop people from being able to serve in any position in this country? It is absolutely not acceptable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've seen that the CEO, the Article 15 talks about the CEO, and then 16 talks about an administrator that is supposed to be designated by the CS. Mr. Speaker, therein I just see conflict. So why would we have the two of them? Mr. Speaker, I think one of them is enough to manage this fund. Why do you have a CEO and then at the same time you have somebody designated by the CS? Obviously, that means that the CS wants to be able to run the fund. And Mr. Speaker, I think that is absolutely unacceptable. So this, Mr. Speaker, at the end of it all, if we don't put a stop to this, Mr. Speaker, I see this regime leaving this country high and dry. Because the intention, the real intention, which they don't say, is that they are attempting to borrow about 5 trillion. Mr. Speaker, if they borrow this kind of money, and you know that they'll be going home in 2027, what happens? Mr. Speaker, we are not going to take over our government and be struggling to pay loans that has been...
Robert, if Honorable Robert could listen to me. You know, Honorable Speaker, there's a reason why we have committees of this House that help us to interrogate some of these bills before we debate. And Robert was here this afternoon because I was with him in the House Business Committee, so I'm certain he was here at 2:30, and he witnessed the chair table the report. And if you go through that report, Honorable Mbui, and he has a researcher paid by the public in his office, that is why I suppose he should be able to have seen from the committee's report, some of the issues he's raising are already addressed in the committee's report vis-a-vis the role of the administrator and the secretary. And the committee has actually recommended that they will be moving an amendment to make the secretary of the board or the CEO the administrator of that fund so that there is no duplication. I was just drawing that attention to Robert so that he doesn't, even the years of experience he's speaking to are issues that are already addressed. But you know, we want to debate, as I said earlier, to excite people out there without looking at what is there.
Order Kagucha, order Ngogoyo, order on. Allow. In any case, Honorable Mbui, you can move in an amendment to these things on the floor of the House. The bill is coming before the House. Proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, we actually don't just debate the report, we debate the bill. I'm reading the bill. So the majority leader, I think, is getting mixed up because
which you can still move an amendment. Yes.
On this floor of this House, we do not debate the report. We debate the bills. Yes. The report is just a proposal by the committee, which can be taken or not taken. And the amendments we cannot propose. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, Mr. Speaker, there is the issue of the remuneration of the directors in clause 13. And I think I've seen that the proposal is that guidelines will be given by the CS from time to time on the remuneration. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether this is constitutional because I would have thought that that would have been better done by SRC because then why would the CS be the one making decisions on remuneration when we already have an independent commission that deals with the salaries and remunerations. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I oppose.
The Honorable Kombe Harrison. Honorable members, you will all get time. Don't worry, Gogoyo. Naomi Wako is next, and then proceed.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nachukua nafasi hii kuunga mkono mswada huu kwa sababu ndiyo tamaa yetu ya kipekee ya kuweza kupata maendeleo katika maeneo yetu. Sehemu nyingi zimekuwa na hata tumesikia ndani ya bunge hili kwamba wabunge wengine wanaenda kunyenyekea katika kamati ya budget ili waweze kuwekewa angalau inchi 5 za lami katika maeneo yao.
Hiyo ni kwa sababu ya yale makadirio tunayoyafanya wakati kwa wakati hayatoshelezi hayo mahitaji. Hapa sasa tunapata nafasi.
What is your point of order, Honorable Kaguchia?
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
The MP is
Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
I am not sure whether Honorable Kombe understands that now he says that he has been going to humble himself before the budget committee to get some projects. I do not know whether he understands that now he will have to go and humble himself before the president himself to get any project done in his constituency.
Order, Kaguchia, order. You're out of order. You're out of order. Order.
Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, naona utaniongezea dakika yangu ambayo
the issue by Honorable Kaguchia has been addressed by the chair. So proceed. Honorable Kaguchia, you are out of order.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, nimesema wengine, sijasema ni mimi. Mimi kwa upande wangu nimeweza kufaulu kupata kilomita 68 za lami, na hivi kuna 23 zingine ambazo zinaenda kukamilishwa mwisho wa mwaka huu. Lakini pamoja na hayo ningetaka tu wawe watulivu kidogo, kwa sababu kile ninachokiona hapa, nafikiri Wakenya tunastahili ama viongozi tunastahili tuwe watu wa kufikiria mbele. Kile ambacho kiongozi wa wengi bungeni hapa amekileta, mswada huu ni mswada wa kuokoa nchi, si mswada tu wa vichochoroni, ni mswada wa kuokoa nchi. Lakini kinachohofiwa, Mheshimiwa Speaker, kinachohofiwa ni kwamba haya yote yakipata kutekelezwa, hakuna vile kiongozi mwingine ataweza kumuondoa Mheshimiwa Rais Ruto mamlakani. Huyo ndio uoga ambao uko. Lakini sisi tuko hapa kufanyia kazi wananchi wa Kenya. Hatuko hapa kwa mambo ya kibinafsi. Masuala kama hayo hayastahili kabisa, na inapaswa tujiepushe na uchoyo, ulafi na ulagai ili tukaweze kuiendeleza Kenya mbele.
Do you wish to be informed by Honorable Karoli Omondi?
Wacha alete tu.
Inform
him.
Bora
umeelewa kile ninazungumzia.
Inform him. Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thanks to Honorable Member. I just wish to inform him that I fully agree with him and share his sentiments that we should not be kneeling to get development. The only problem with this bill is that there's no parliamentary process for approving the project, infrastructure project, money will be invested in. Unlike the current situation where all the budgets and the projects come to this house. So he will be thoroughly exposed this time round. That is the information that I think.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, Mheshimiwa Karoli amenipotezea wakati wangu. Mheshimiwa Speaker, huu mswada tunaujadili sasa. Kisha utafika kipindi cha kwamba tukaweze kufanya marekebisho. Ndio uweke yale yako ambayo unaona yanafaa.
Endelea Bwana Kombe.
Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Muongezee dakika moja Honorable Kombe.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, mswada huu kwa hali yoyote ile, kwa hali na mali, ningewaomba wabunge wenzangu tukaweze kuunga mkono na tukaupitishe asubuhi na mapema ili kwamba maendeleo yakaweze kufika katika kila eneo bunge. Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Mheshimiwa Naomi Wako. You know, the Speaker looks at so many things. He looks at regions, he looks at gender, he looks at everything. This thing has got to be balanced, so don't worry. What did he say? Yeah, Naomi is also extremely beautiful. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support this bill, and I happen to come from northern part of Kenya, which is underdeveloped up to today. And I don't know how many years it will take us to catch up with the rest of this country. Honorable Speaker, all the people who are trying to oppose this bill are the people who come from the developed areas. They have roads, they have other infrastructure, and they are against this development just because they don't want the rest of us to benefit. I come from Marsabit, and today what we want is to have water. And all our problems, in fact, our main problem in Marsabit is water. And unless we get these funds, then we will not be able to get enough water to do agriculture, because even the other areas of this country can no longer depend on the rainwater. So if we can do irrigation or farming and feed some of the people that come from northern part of Kenya, that is what we are crying for today, so that we can also be like any other part of this country. When it comes to the roads, the road infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, where I come from, it is only during the time of the late Kibaki that we were able to get even the main road from here to Marsabit and beyond. When you get to Marsabit, you cannot see the feeder roads. The schools are still, in fact, some students study under trees. That is why I stand to support when some of the honorable members here are busy laughing at the challenges that some part of this country go through. I don't want to be.
You've had your time, don't waste. What is your point of order, boy?
Mr. Speaker, I just want to confirm. Several members have continuously indicated that this fund is supposed to be sorting out problems of development where there was none before. Mr. Speaker, this is not equalization fund. They need to tell us where that is.
Order. Equalization fund is 0.5%. How do you equalize
Honorable
something?
Mbui, you had your time, give me my time, so that I can also express myself. Honorable Speaker, I strongly support this bill because this bill is an innovative way to raise funds for infrastructure without imposing additional burden to Kenyans. That is what every Kenyan is looking forward to. 2 years ago, we had a lot of challenges because of taxes. But today, once we approve this bill, once we debate, and, once the president assents to this, then we will be able to avoid overtaxing Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, as I said, because the legal background of the bill says that the Constitution empowers Parliament to establish other public funds for specific purposes through an act of Parliament. And that is all we are doing today. And this bill gives effect to this Constitution provision by creating a structured, accountable frame for infrastructure financing in the county. Honorable Speaker, our country has suffered a lot. And I just want us to imagine what percentage.
Allow this lady to say something. What's your point about it? Yes.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I'm listening to Honorable Wako, and I really respect her, but I think it will not be in order for what she's saying to go without really correcting the record. If you look at clause 23 of this bill, it says the fund shall undertake feasibility studies on investment projects to determine the commercial viability of the projects.
Order.
The word commercial is important. I come from...
Order. Proceed, Naomi Wako, proceed. Conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Again, I support this because I have read through and seen composition of the board directors, which is quite good. And the only thing that we need to correct is under qualification for appointment of the chairperson, which says 15 years. And I am sure the committee has already taken care of that. They have reduced that from 15 to 10 years, which is acceptable and will also be beneficial. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, and it is my prayer that every part of this country will be developed so that we can go to Singapore. Thank you.
Honorable Mboni, Honorable Dr. Makali, the most viable areas in this country today are the arid and semi-arid areas. Commercially, yes. Land and minerals. Proceed. This is not the days of just coffee and tea, for your information. Things have changed. Proceed. Mboni, proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I think Makali is
followed
very
by
right.
Honorable Jackson. Proceed.
Yes, and I think Honorable Makali is correct what he's saying. Actually, when you look at the bill talks about funding national commercially viable projects. That's what it talks about. In highway, railway networks, airports, seaports. Because the intention of this fund, when you invest in commercially viable projects, the proceedings, the revenues from those projects are supposed to come back to the fund to fund other projects. That's the essence of this bill. So when I listen to members contributing, it's like they are waiting for this fund to fund their 20 kilometers somewhere in their constituency. This fund is not for that. If you are looking for that, look for that in the national budget. Mr. Speaker, having said that, it is very common knowledge that, before I go on, I'm a member of the Finance Committee, so I'm familiar with this. It's very common knowledge that this country is facing, it does not have borrowing space, and we also need investments. We need to invest in infrastructure. We need good roads, we need seaports, we need railways, we need good airports so that we can attract investments. That's the essence, actually, of the whole thing. Because infrastructure development opens up a country for investment. No foreign investor will come to invest where there is no good communication. No investor will invest in a factory where you cannot get adequate electricity. That's the essence of this bill. And therefore, there is a need to look for alternative sources of income. This bill proposes to mobilize funds from non-traditional sources. I mean, we have been talking about tax revenue, which, of course, up to now, we are facing what we call lava cap. You try to increase revenues, you try to increase taxes, the revenues will go down because people cannot no longer pay taxes. And therefore, we need to look for non-traditional sources, the PPPs, public-private partnership, private capital, where you can get private capital, and also, of course, utilize our domestic pensions. The privatization of Kenya pipeline and sale of Safaricom shares 15% will go into forming the seed money for this fund. That's the essence. And from there, I think government has intention to raise up to 500 billion shillings as seed money. Mr. Speaker, this bill reminds me about Vision 2030. We had projects like LAPSET projects, which were supposed to contribute 2% percentage point to the GDP. And Mr. Speaker, you know, LAPSET project is supposed to open northeastern region and increasing 2 percentage points to the GDP. That is around 300 billion to the GDP, which is a milestone. in terms of development.
Jackson Kosgei, you have 3 minutes. And we will then, of course, adjourn the House.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I begin on the onset.
The chair will certainly make sure that the Honorable Oundo, followed by Honorable Ngogoyo, and Honorable Kaguchia and Makali will follow in that order when the debate comes again. We'll be the first people who will have the priority. And Wamudende and the gracious lady, Njoro constituency MP, and of course the MP for, how can I forget the MP for Nyeri Town? Madenge, you will be in that order. I think the Hansard will reflect that, and you people will get the chance.
Thank you, Mr.
As soon as the debate comes up again.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, tomorrow
Speaker.
afternoon. Proceed, Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And as I said from the onset, I support the bill. When I read this bill, it reminded me about where we began as a nation in 1965. I wish to draw the attention of the House to sessional paper number 10 of 1965, African Socialism and its Application to Planning in Kenya. It was a foundational paper that informs policy document for the independent country. And they proposed a middle path, that we should not go the west or the east. Many years later, Mr. Speaker, we discovered that all other areas in the country except the White Island areas were developing and the others were not. And the question has been, what went wrong and what did we miss in the beginning? In the year 2022, there is a man by the name Joseph Borrell. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to quote what he said. He said, Europe is a garden. We have built a garden, everything works. Most of the rest of the world is a jungle, and the jungle could invade the garden. Mr. Speaker, what did they do to build that jungle? They established a fund after World War II. They established an institution called International Bank for Reconstruction. It had two facets, where the nation raised funds, and the other one was a participation by the public-private participation. This is a case that we can look at and say at independence, we must have missed that particular point. Mr. Speaker, I support the bill.
Honorable members, the time being 7:06 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 4th of March, the year 2026, at 2:30 p.m.